Before you get your pitchforks out, let me make it abundantly clear in no uncertain terms that I do love this movie and it is a pretty fun watch, especially in a theater with friends. And if all you want from your horror film is an equivalent of a quick wank, then Dies Irae does deliver in loads. But now with the clarity that comes after, I can confidently say that while the movie is good and even great at times, it doesn't quite live up to the highs that it promised initially, with the film going almost limp by the end. And while its last few minutes sort of redeem it, my overall thoughts are those of disappointment. Not because the film was bad, no, quite the opposite, because it could have been so much better. The how, the why, let's get into it. Oh, and as usual, no spoilers. Dies Irae tells the story of Rohan, our playboy millionaire protagonist who is haunted by the death of someone from his past, quite literally and quite violently too, if I may add, and his journey to save himself before his past catches up with him, and it is too little too late. Okay, first and foremost, this movie has some of the most brilliantly executed horror sequences that I have seen in Indian cinema in quite some time. These are not some long hallways ending in cheap jump scares. No, these are a masterclass in effective horror filmmaking, complete with precise pacing, laser-focused direction, and scares that actually get under your skin. They feel like their own complete horror short films, with each one getting more and more intense, shocking, and horrific as the movie progresses. In fact, there is this one brutal, barely 30-second sequence which is so well executed that it might just be one of the best horror sequences I have seen in a very long time. The movie is worth watching for this sequence alone, and fortunately or unfortunately, it sets a very high bar for the rest of the film, but more on that later. All of this is thanks to the efforts of brilliant filmmaker Rahul Sadashivan, who is fast becoming India's own Mike Flanagan. For those unfamiliar, Rahul Sadashivan is the creative visionary behind Brahmayugam, one of the best Indian horror films ever made. Quick tangent, one of the first pieces of content that I made for this channel was a 30-minute long video essay about the beauty of Brahmayugam, which I made last year, but it will never see the light of day thanks to me not being happy with its final outcome. Should I rework and release the Brahmayugam video? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Anyway, kudos to the visual and sound guys as well. And I'm not talking just about the cinematography or the music alone. I am talking about the whole audio-visual landscape, the production design, the sets, the sound design, and the music, all of which work in sync to create a brilliantly dreadful ambience and vibe for the entire film. And a special props to the effects team, the practical and visual teams, though I do believe a lot of the effects were practical. There are some expertly crafted shots in the movie involving invisible entities interacting with people and objects on screen that are glorious to say the least. There is also more disturbing imagery that pops up from time to time, which involve amazing use of prosthetics and makeup that will definitely send shivers down your spine as well. But it's not just technical wizardry or cinematic craftsmanship that makes the film come alive, it's the talent on screen that ultimately kept me engaged. Now, I'm still not convinced that Pranav Mohanlal is a good actor. In fact, I personally believe that Nepo kids have to be outstanding from the very get-go for me to consider them to be good actors, purely due to the fact that they are, at the end of the day, using an unfair advantage to get a role that an unknown but great actor could have filled. That being said, his casting in this film is perfect in a weird way. Pranav Mohanlal, son of Mohanlal, plays Rohan Shankar, our lead in this film, who has lived a privileged and carefree life, basically on easy mode, thanks to and leeching off his rich and famous dad, and now, whether he likes it or not, he is in a position where he has to build something for himself. Needless to say, he's pretty much perfect for this role and he nails it. His character, unlike the typical movie leads, is this irredeemable, selfish prick of a human being who ends up being somewhat of an anti-hero, and Pranav's demeanor and style of acting complements these types of morally dubious characters much more than the good-natured heartthrob roles he does, in my opinion. I am still not convinced that he's a good actor, though, as a good filmmaker can extract great performances from even okay actors if they are casted well, and I believe this is one such case. Pranav's more subdued acting is a bit of a contrast to Jibin Gobinath's somewhat more typical movie-ish performance of Madhu, someone who we spend the most amount of time with after Rohan, who is a bit more engaging to watch in my opinion. And then there is the standout character of Kiran, who is also connected to the events of the film, played by Arun Najikumar, who, while he has a very limited screen time, does deliver a uniquely captivating and relatable performance, mostly thanks to his uniquely lanky physique and a talent for natural acting. Also, he appears in that sequence. You know what, let's talk about it and rip the band-aid into the negatives about the film. The film has an A rating mostly due to that 30-second sequence, which is straight up shocking and horrifying in ways that shook me like no other film has in quite some time. And while this is obviously a good thing, this sequence and everything leading up to it unfortunately sets up a very high bar that will stop me from saying that it was a weak reveal at best and an anti-Deus Ex Machina at worst. This is followed by an out-of-place fight sequence, and then the movie just sort of ends unceremoniously out of nowhere. And yes, the movie does end on a very high note in a manner befitting the character of Rohan with another really well executed horror sequence, but by that point I had sort of already checked out. See, this movie had the potential to be one of the best in the genre, but unfortunately an overall sloppy writing and an especially underwhelming finale left me somewhat disappointed. You know what? The more I think about the writing, the less it makes sense. So I'll just leave it at that. To reiterate, I'm not saying it's a bad film. It's just a bit disappointing. And I have to admit that instead of the film being something like the next Hereditary, which it had the potential to be, felt more like an episode of some anthology horror series that is good but not great overall. So to conclude, should you watch this film? Yes, you should. You should go to the theaters, take your friends and grab some popcorn as well. But do keep your expectations in check. You will see other YouTubers praise this film as the best horror film ever made or something like that, which it is not. And that is why I wait for clarity to set in before I write what you are seeing right now. My point is, beware the hype. That being said, you will have a good time and you will love this film. And I think it's our duty as film goers to support films like this which take risks and are unique instead of supporting more massified slop. What the hell do I mean by that? Well, to find out, why don't you watch this video linked here? Yeah, this one. And watch my other videos as well. Also, subscribe as well. Till next time, this is the Indian Movie Critic. Bye.